live transitioning humanitarians that we do usually with Vicky, and Vicky couldn't make it today, so that's why I'm doing it on my own. And the topic that I want to discuss with you today is when to quit and when not to quit. And this is the topic that I keep hearing a lot, the question that I keep hearing a lot from humanitarians in the transitioning or thinking about transitioning or have tried to do that and then felt like they failed and they went back and then now they want to do it again and then they just keep having this question of when is okay or when is mature to transition and when it's not. And here are the questions or the ways that I would like to walk you through. And then, of course, if you have any questions or you would like coaching, let us know and we'll be happy to help you go through this as well together. So let's start first asking the question of when to quit, when to, I guess many of my clients want to ask is when it is actually giving up and when it's not, and is it the weakness or it's good for us to do it. These are the questions I think my clients come when they struggle, and here is I would like for you to walk yourself through to get to your own answers, whatever those answers are. So the first question is always, of course, why do you want to quit? Right? And what are your reasons for it? And usually, when we have a lot of emotional turmoil, or when we feel like we are fed up, and when we feel, okay, I can't take this anymore, we tend to then say, I'm going to quit. And in those moments, it's best to really get clear as to why do we want to do that. And we know also that when we are in those emotional states, best not to make decisions, right? Because of the reason that later we may regret those decisions. So that's why when we give ourselves this chance of looking at, okay, calming down, right? Processing all those emotions, and then asking this question of why do we want to quit? And then I'm sure there will be a lot of answers that come up because I'm fed up, because I don't really believe this is working, maybe because I really want to be with my family, because I want to do something else, because I no longer see the way that I can contribute in the best way, right? All of these reasons, or maybe there are other reasons that you will come up with. And then the second question that I would love to ask is, how will you solve those problems now before leaving? And the reason why I think this is a very beneficial way of approaching when we want to quit is because A, we're not going to just give up when the difficulties come, right? And we continue being the person who are able to solve those difficulties when they come as they come, instead of being the person who just says, okay, I'm out of here and I don't care or whatever. And even if, let's say that your job was like a relationship, right? So in relationship, especially long-term relationships, we would try to figure out, we would try to solve things so that we're not just separating or divorcing or breaking up because of when the difficulties come, right? Because difficulties come in any relationship, in any environment. So therefore, I would like for you to rather think about, okay, how are you going to solve those problems currently without quitting beforehand? And the more you will solve those problems, whatever they are, is it because you are fed up? Okay, why are you fed up? Is it because you are burnt out? What are the reasons for you burning out? Is it because you just don't believe in this thing or in this cause? Why are you not believing in this cause? And is there a way you can solve those things now before you actually deciding to quit? And that way you will strengthen your self-concept of the person who actually solves things, who looks at things not only when the emotions get high, but also look at things and try to solve them before looking for alternatives. And also, I would love for you to be reinforcing that self-concept of the person, of someone who can solve any problems in whatever environment we're in. And when we have that type of self concept, even if we later decide to transition and quit and do something totally different, that self concept will be so beneficial, because then we will be facing new environments and new challenges, and we will be able to say, okay, I am someone who can solve those problems. I am someone who is willing to do a lot of things to solve these problems before deciding whether this is for me or not, right? The third thing that I would then ask you to consider or brainstorm about is, how will you make the alternative work, and what is that alternative basically, right? So if you decide to quit and you want to go to somewhere else, okay, then whatever that alternative that you're going for, whatever the somewhere else you're going for, how will you make that work? And in that question, I think we tend often not to really ask this question of how are we going to make it work. We tend to ask more questions of, will it work? How it's going to work? How do I know it's going to work? We tend to stay a lot in this type of uh, inner dialogues with ourselves, instead of asking the question, how am I going to make this other thing work if I were to go for it? Right? And whenever we ask this question, we feel like either we will have our honest answer of, I'm afraid that that I can make it work, right? That's an honest conversation with ourselves. I'm afraid if I really can make it work, okay, then what are we going to do about that fear, right? Because we can work with fear, we can um, overcome fear, but we need to be willing to work on it, on that fear, instead of just saying, oh, I don't think I can make it work, I'm too afraid to make it work. If we're too afraid to make it work, then the question is, okay, then are we willing to make our current situation work? Right? Are we willing to solve all of those problems that we believe about disbelief, or about not being able to see our family members, or maybe it's about contractual situation, or maybe the problems with difficult bosses or difficult colleagues, or whatever the way we consider the problems are because of which we want to quit? Are we willing to then solve those problems and make our current situation work? Right? So when we have this type of conversation with ourselves of, okay, am I willing to go for something new and make that environment, that situation work? Or am I willing to more likely to make my current situation work in the way that I want to, or in the way that I feel good about it? Which one am I solving for, right? And when we have this type of conversations, then we realize, um, is this really the time to quit or not? Right? Because if we're willing to make the transitioning and what's coming up after transitioning, if we're willing to make that work, then okay, how can we get ready to make that work already now? Meaning, how can we test certain things and start getting ready for transitioning and seeing what happens afterwards? So, for instance, with one of my clients, what we're doing now is that he has decided to stop his work and quit his work, whichever the way you like hear it more, right? And he wants to do something else on his own. But in the meantime, before we know that the alternative works, we are in the phase of testing it currently, in the phase of figuring out how this will work, whether this is a viable alternative, and testing all of those details before he even resigns, before he even decides to separate from the organization, right? And that's really the honest conversation will come up when we start asking this question of, okay, if my question is when is good to quit, and the next question is usually, okay, how will I make the alternative work, or how will I make my current situation work, and which one am I willing to work on it more, which one do I want to work on it more, and how will that look like? right? And there is really like no right or wrong answers, meaning that you decide what is the right answer for you, what is the wrong answer for you, right? You will know what is your answer is. But here are the things that I would like for you to also think about when not to quit, so that you can at least hear from lessons learned that I have done with myself. I have learned my lessons and I have talked about it before, but I want to just highlight it here. And I have also coached some of my clients around this topic of when not to quit. So, one of the reasons I would suggest not to quit is when you are feeling a lot of emotions, and when you're feeling like, I just want to get away from here, I just want to, like, I'm so fed up, I'm just wanting to get away and hope for the best. And then when you are in that situation, what we don't realize is, and I have done it, I have quit my job before in 2013, and I was also in that emotional state of burnout and just not wanting to deal with any of these things. And then I just thought, okay, I'll just leave and I don't care what happens. I will just leave and see what happens. And then what happened afterwards is, once I was like jobless on my own, not only that I needed to take care of my job prospects for the next time, because I didn't have any monetary cushions to rely on, right? So therefore, not only I needed to think about job, but also I needed to take care of my emotional state. And all of these emotional things were coming up. And then as I was trying to process all of those things, at the same time juggling for a job, finding a job. And then what I realized was that even if I got the next best job that I thought it was okay, and then I went there, and all of those triggers, all of those difficulties that I faced with uh, people in my previous job, they all came back with the new job, right? Those difficulties that I was having before, like having difficulty with a boss, and having difficulty setting boundaries, having difficulty really taking care of myself instead of just burning myself out. All of those challenges came up in the new job. And then I was like, okay, but I left my previous job. Why all of these problems are coming back again, right? So that's why what my lesson that I have really learned is that all of those problems need to be solved, either in the same environment where we are, and ideally, I would suggest to try to do that. And if you feel like you are emotionally not in a place and you need to take care of yourself and take a medical leave, absolutely do that. You know your own situation better. But then also, taking a medical leave while you having your current job might be much better for your mental health, for your stability, feeling stability, and taking care of yourself, and taking a medical leave instead of quitting, right? So that's why I would say that don't quit because of escaping certain situations or because of escaping certain people, but rather try to solve those situations as much as you can. Try to solve it while working with a therapist if you have therapy related issues, or try to solve them while working with a coach. That's what I have done. That's one reason why I think when not to quit would be my suggestion. The other one is that I have seen from several of my clients recently, where they have worked in the organizations or in the sector for more than 20 years, or like the years may not even be the important thing to the focus on, but rather they really felt like if they leave this place, they would know how to make anything else work. They would not only know how to make anything else work, but they also felt like they don't want to start something new. They don't want to build something new or create something new. And they just feel like they don't want to spend energy on that, right? And if you feel like you are one of those people that you just don't want to start something totally new, you just don't want to, you don't even believe that it's possible for you, or you don't have the energy for that, then the best thing you can do is, instead of quitting, making your current situation work best for you, right? That's what I would suggest. And that's what I would also coach you around it, is that, okay, if you feel like the alternative is something that's so unbelievably hard if you started doing it, or if you feel like that's not even possible and you have built all of your life or all of your resources here where you are in the humanitarian sector, let's say, then I would say, okay, then let's just focus on never quitting and going until the end in this sector. And then while you decide not to quit, which already makes you realize that you have only this option, right? And instead of feeling powerless, saying, oh my God, I'm trapped in this option, I would rather say, work on feeling this is, you are choosing to be in this sector because you're choosing not to work on the other one, and remove this powerless feeling, but instead, okay, this is the environment where I'm choosing to stay until the end, whatever the end is. And if I'm choosing to stay here, then how am I going to make it work in the way that feels fulfilling, in the way that feels like you're doing something that you want to, in the way that feels like not powerless? Let's work and solve those problems so that you feel at least this inner feeling of, okay, I'm staying here, I'm doing this, I'm owning it, I'm owning my decision, and I'm actually never quitting on this. I'm going to go until the end, and therefore I'm going to, and I'm willing to solve all the problems in the meantime that I feel are problems, because of which I considered transitioning as an option. Now I have considered, and I'm not wanting to do transitioning somewhere else, but rather I'm transitioning in my mindset and in my way of approaching things, so that I am willing to solve whatever the problems that come my way and feel stronger afterwards rather than draining afterwards, right? So that's what I would suggest. And also, don't indulge yourself in, okay, am I really a weak person for not going for what I want? Or am I really using this as an excuse? Don't indulge in that, because those type of like questioning may not really be useful, and therefore ask yourself, how are you going to make your current situation work for you the way you want to, and then start solving those problems without ever thinking about leaving or quitting, right? Now, I have also gotten several uh, questions from clients when they start thinking about whether to quit or not. One of the questions that come up is, am I really weak for thinking this? Right? So I have several clients who asked me this. They said, okay, I really want to be with my family. I want to really see my children grow, but at the same time, I know that I need to be a responsible uh, like spouse, responsible dad, or responsible mom, and therefore I want to be providing for the family as well. And I just feel like those two things don't go together, kind of, right? And therefore, they were asking the question of, am I really weak for thinking that I just want to be with my children instead of just prioritizing work? And if that's the question you are having, I would like for you to like think about, why do you think spending time with a family is a weakness, right? Because if anything, I would argue not spending with the family is weakness. But of course, whether it's weakness or not, you are the person who labels it, right? You are the person who's deciding this is a weakness or not. Therefore, I would like for you to get curious as to, why do you think spending time with your family and prioritizing family is a weakness? Because probably society has somehow taught us that The first thing is the financial security and stability. Yes, financial security stability is important, but so is family, right? I mean, depending on your priorities, but I'm assuming if you're asking this question, then family is a priority and important to you. So then the question is, okay, is there a way that we can make something, or we can transition to a lifestyle where we have the priority of family and at the same time figure out how to how to make the financial part work, right? Can we really make those two things happen? And if so, how are we going to do that? Because just be us keep asking this question of, is this weakness that I want to spend time with my family? I don't think that will get us anywhere. And also us asking the question of, is this a mature decision to be leaving this job, uh, even though maybe I don't really want to be doing this, but and I want to be doing something else, but is this really a mature decision? When you ask this type of question, ask yourself, why do you believe that mature decision has to do only with finances, right? Because I think a lot of the times humanitarians believe that if we're leaving the job that well pays well because we want to spend with our families or because we want to do some other things, then it's an immature decision, some humanitarians believe. But why is that a mature decision? Right? Ask yourself this question. And also, what if actually a mature decision is when we want to spend time with our families, when we want to do the things we really believe in, and at the same time make the finances work, and that's a mature decision, and therefore let's figure that out. Because for me, whatever the decision that involves having our health prioritize, having our family prioritize, having our impact that we want to do prioritize, that's a mature decision. And let's go for that type of decision instead of just going for, okay, this is paying the dues, paying the bills, therefore let's stick to it even though everything else is not the way I want to, and I will just keep suppressing all my feelings, I will just keep suppressing what I really want, and then hopefully we arrive at the pension age and then we'll figure out the rest, right? And I think that has been a model for many people in the past, but we are recognizing more and more of not only financial side that needs to be stable, but also emotional side that needs to be stable, right? Where we feel emotionally stable and balanced and want to do things the way we want to, and being with our families, um, being healthy, and having the financial stability. All of this needs to be together for us to be functioning the way we want to and living our lives. Otherwise, if we see that one part of that um, puzzle is missing, then we will be likely not to really enjoy what we have. So that's why whatever your label of this is weakness or this is mature or this is immature, question that. What is a mature decision for you? What is an immature decision for you? What is weakness and why it is a weakness? And do you want this to be a weakness or you actually want this to be your priority, right? And your brain may have gotten so used to prioritizing work or prioritizing whatever the organization was demanding of you. Your brain might have gotten used to letting that work dominate over your life. But that's one way of living our lives, right? That's certainly not the only way. And there are other ways of living life where we don't let the work dominate so much that we can't do other things that are important to us. So that's why my answers, or rather the way that I would like for you to answer for yourself when to quit and when not to quit, these are the questions that I would walk you through is one, getting clear on why you want to do that and doing this conversation with yourself or with your coach in the time when you have processed your emotions, right? Two, how will you solve those problems that you feel like because of which you want to go and leave the humanitarian sector, for instance? What are the problems they are, and can you really make or work on them and solve them before quitting? Why and why not? And the third question I would ask is, how will you make the alternative work? Right? What is the alternative and how will you make that work? And also getting really clear for yourself as to all those like labeling type of questions that you have about, oh, this would be immature, or oh, this would be mature, or this would be weakness, this wouldn't be weakness. Question those before just keep asking yourself that question. Question why it would be weakness, why it would be mature, why it will be immature, what is a mature decision, how would you make that mature decision, what do you need to be in place for you to make that mature decision. And these are the conversations you can have with yourself. You can also bring it to a coach, bring it to us, and we would love to help you coach on these questions. So I hope that this was helpful for you to think about how you would answer your own questions of when to quit, when not to quit, and make the decisions based on that. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my insight on this, and absolutely come coach with me. I would love to help you to make this transition as successful as you would like it to be, whichever the direction, whether to leave or not to leave. So have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you. Well, this Vicky will talk to you next week. Thank you.